beast stalker, giant stalker, dragon stalker, crypt stalker, demon stalker, rift stalker, grom stalker, crypt stalker, scourge stalker, wind runner. I'm a pony, elite skill hunter, a death dealer, a life stealer. That's just the cost of being awesome.
Welcome to episode 208 of the Hunting Party Podcast. I'm Darkbrew for thebrewhall.com and the Brew Hall on Twitter.
I'm Delirium from Thrill of the Wild, the Warcraft Hunters Union, and at Delirium Hunts on Twitter.
I'm Bendak from Eyes of the Beast, WoW Insider, and Bendak WoW on Twitter.
Okay, today is Sunday, January the 4th, 2015. Yes, I remember the year change. And we are broadcasting live on twitch.tv. You can participate in the live chat room where our lovely moderator, Alisaunder, is there to take your questions. It looks like Solarflair and Artemishowl aren't here today. I think they're recovering from their New Year's hangovers still, the benefits of being young, I guess. But we've got Delirium, Bendak, myself here, Alisaunder. So we have a show. So happy New Year to everyone. I hope you guys are doing well and had a good New Year. And everyone have a good New Year?
Yeah,
no,
fairly uneventful
uneventful.
for me.
It was for me too. I don't do much on New Year's Eve or any of that stuff nowadays. You go out to dinner and stuff like that. But yeah, I agree. It was sort of like a quiet changeover, and I'm just doing the things that I normally do in World of Warcraft, which is getting my minions to do their bidding and playing this whole follower minigame, which maybe we'll talk a little bit about that later on, because we don't have too much in the way of hunter stuff. There's not a lot of news going on here, and last week we really talked about the three specs, and maybe we can kind of follow up on that a little bit. Certainly survival seemed to have captured a lot lot of people's interest.
Yeah, what's up with that?
And it wasn't like it was buffed a whole lot, right? I mean, there was all we had were the kind of hot fixes, which nerfed MM a little bit, and buffed. I'm even trying to remember exactly what they were now. We got the serpent sting damage increase, correct? That was really the big one for survival.
I think that was the only buff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and so that might be a little deceiving. Also, that applies every time we hit Arcane Shot, we get a tick of Serpent Sting. So it's also a buff to our Arcane Shot indirectly.
Well, that's a good question. That's not something we've talked about, because I think I think the answer is yes. It makes sense to do that, right? You just want it whenever you have the focus and you need that filler shot to just go ahead and hit Arcane Shot, and you don't really have to monitor the sting, correct? I mean, there's no point in doing that and waiting for the serpent sting to drop or get close to dropping. I mean, it's just fine to go ahead and keep refreshing that as needed, or as often as you need to hit Arcane Shot.
Yeah, it seems like there's no risk of, clipping off or losing ticks because of that. You get extra ticks for every Arcane Shot you hit, so it does reset the timer. So it's not like you can double up from using it at a specific time, but every time you use it, you get a new 3 seconds, and it works out ahead, no matter what time in the dot you use it. So
Yeah, you just got to pay attention to secondary targets. Do you guys use any add-ons for that, like tracking Serpent Sting on secondary targets?
I've been doing it all with my I don't even know what add-on this is called. It's whatever I use for, oh my goodness, I'm totally blanking.
Focus bar or?
No, what do you call the things above all your enemies' heads?
Oh, God. I know.
Tidy plates. That's
tidy plates.
Tidy plates. Thank you, Synth.
Yeah,
so I have it set up to show every dot I have on each character. And it's not the most convenient, because if they're spread out, I don't notice it. But in the most case, I can see, it has a little countdown for each dot that I have going on each target.
Yeah, I haven't done anything specifically for multi-target. It's been a while since I've had an add-on for that. I know there's one, I think, called Fort Exorcist, and it's spelled like FORTE XORCIST. I think that was a very popular add-on initially for warlocks, but it was really dot tracking was one of the big things that it does. And I think that's a good one to try, to be able to track your dots that are sitting on that you have on multiple targets. So that's one to take a look at. I use that a couple expansions back, but I haven't used it this time around. But I think that's a popular one that will do, as I say, dot tracking when you have multiple targets. Obviously, for single target, there's any number of things you can do for the target that you're currently focused on. But I think that one will allow you to, if you're not targeting, so if you get multiple ads and, the ones that you aren't targeting, I think you can use that to track that. But
yeah, so I've been having a lot of fun trying to kind of max those, the multi-dotting, especially I think, for you, Beast Mastery Hunters, you're definitely still ahead on AoE on paper, but I feel like in a lot of raid environments, survival's really pulling ahead on AoE, because on fights like Twins, where you can dot up one even when it has to run away to do whatever the whirlwind thing is, or other fights where they get a little too far away from each other for Beast Cleave, but I can still have my dots ticking on everything. So it's been a lot of fun to try and, I don't know, especially after kind of the slow trudge of marksmanship. It's I really enjoyed it lately, focusing on multi-dotting. Maybe I should look more into add-ons. That's a good idea.
Yeah, check out that, like I said, the Fort Exorcist. But you bring up a good point with, that's a nice thing where, as you say, Beast Mastery comes out, ahead on AoE, but the way they deliver the AoE is very, very different. And, since Beast Mastery is more of a cleave, you really kind of need to have your targets, clumped up or in very close proximity, whereas that's not the case with survival. You can just, as long as you're multi-shot, you can reach all the targets, you're good to go, and can apply the dot there, and you don't have to worry about them being too close together.
Yeah. So, Bendak, have you still been playing pretty much all Beast Mastery and Raid this last couple weeks since the buffs?
No, since the buffs, I've been doing like half BM, half survival, just to try it out. And survival single target is really strong. Like AoE aside, like the single target, I was trying it with focusing shot and steady focus, and the single target is the highest damage I've ever done.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And I think steady focus was a surprise to everybody, as much as survival being in the lead for single target was a surprise.
Yeah, I haven't tried steady focus, and it's one that I definitely want to give that a look at, especially with focusing shot. I think those two work really well together, only because, one focusing shot and boom, you've enabled steady focus. I had been doing Thrill of the Hunt, but I find that if it doesn't proc, especially in the beginning, and this is sort of true for marksmanship as well, I'm talking like on the pull, if I don't get that Thrill of the Hunt proc, then I feel like you lose out on some damage early on in the fight, and have to spend time regenning focus early on, whereas I think steady focus just seems like it's a little bit more reliable in that regard of being able to control when you're going to get that focus regen.
Yeah, I just don't like steady focus when you have to do the double.
Yes.
Shots. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't fit my playstyle. Like, there's too many times where I just top myself up at the last second with a single shot, and it always falls off.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that the double Cobra shot, for example, to activate steady focus doesn't seem as smooth. I don't like it as well. But being able to only have to cast, say, focusing shot one time and get steady focus, I think it's really, really nice. I mean, do you find yourself, though, risk getting focus capped at all at times, or is it not too much of an issue?
It's not too bad as long as you plan things out. Like, you just make sure you dump everything so you're really low on focus before you use it.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of have to, on fights with heavy movement, I don't like it, focusing shot, but on something where you can plan out your movement, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think we mentioned this last show, but I've been really surprised at how smooth focusing shot feels with survival. In the beta at least, I remember thinking how clunky it was, only having 100 focus where the other specs have 120, and trying to manage that focusing shot I didn't like in the beta, but for some reason now it just feels totally natural. I have to think about it anymore. It's just, use it when you're at a certain point. I don't even know what the point is where I use it, but looking at my focus bar, it just feels right at one point, and then I don't have to worry about capping.
And I think we've all sort of touched upon this. I think we're all agree here. I do miss kill shot, or the lack of kill shot with survival. I mean, I like survival in the sense that the rotation is very simple. I mean, there's definitely not much in the way of button bloat there right now, but not having that kill shot feels a little bit empty at times, especially when you get to the end of a fight. You're like, want that little bit of extra push, which just isn't there.
Yeah, there's no reward.
Yeah, and I would love to see Killshot come back for survival, but as we are in PvP, I don't think they could balance around it. It would just be too strong of a spec.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure they could do something, but it would mean nerfing us significantly to put Killshot back in.
And you certainly don't want that. And now that it's just gotten up to a point where people actually like it. I mean, what was I going to say? Now I just lost my quick train of thought here about survival. Of course, I've always liked the lock and load, and I'm glad they kept that. They reverted the changes that they had initially planned in the alpha and the beta and
the multi-strike.
Yes,
proc?
yeah.
You didn't like that?
Not as much. It was just, and maybe I didn't play it enough to give myself an opportunity to get used to it. But I just prefer the current implementation.
Yeah, I really liked the idea of it. It didn't work out as well, when playing. It didn't necessarily make sense to ever save your lock and load procs. But I like the idea of multi-strike mattering, not just being a flat damage increase.
Well, that I can't. No,
definitely matters. It's like the stat is so far above every other stat for survival. It's that I have some shoulders, and they're 645, and for survival, because I have multi-strike, they're better than my 665 shoulders.
Oh, wow. I've heard other people
not have much multi-strike other than that?
No, I have quite a bit of multi-strike. It just seems like there's no diminishing returns on it.
Yeah, and they're simming higher for you?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've heard other people sort of say similar things, not specifically to multi-strike, but that the, secondary stats seem to matter a lot more now this time around than the item level of the gear. And I mean, in MOP, you could pretty much go by the item level of your piece of gear and know that was going to be an upgrade. But that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case now with Warlords of Draenor, and that you should really need to pay attention to the secondary stats because they're not all equal.
Well, especially if the item levels are within 5 to 10 of each other. But if it's 15 plus, it's a pretty safe bet. Just in some cases like survival, where it's multi-strike is just so darn good. Say you have a piece with mastery and haste, anything with multi-strike is probably going to be better, even significantly lower item level.
Yeah, I've tried to certainly enchant multi-strike and gem multi-strike and add multi-strike from those sources where I can. If nothing else, I mean, it doesn't hurt the other specs at all. So I just think it's sort of like a nice balance stat that you feel comfortable with, knowing that it's going to help, beast mastery for sure. Although I dropped my BM spec for the moment. So I'm got survival and MM just because I was afraid to drop marksmanship, but I may do that and go with BM and SV now as my two primary specs, which will be fine for the content that we're doing.
Were you playing any MM in Raid this last couple weeks?
I did a little bit last week. I didn't raid the week before with the holidays, but I did one or two fights with MM, and I don't know that they were successful. But I mostly focused on playing survival this time around, which was good. I mean, on the first fight, the Kargath. Sorry about that. So for Kargath, I ended up having to go into doing the stands, which I don't normally have to do. So I think marksmanship is pretty useless for that aspect of the fight. So I went with survival, and I picked up barrage for that. So that wasn't too bad. And then the butcher is another one where I tried to use marksmanship, and I had been in the past, but I get I'm part of the group, part of the melee group, and I'm one of the people that helps to balance out the two sides. So I start off in, and then I have to jump out and with the cleave. So I have a little bit of movement in that one. So again, I don't like survival or marksmanship as much for that. I've just found survival to be a little bit better for that one.
Yeah, I was hoping Butcher would be a little bit more interesting because it's, one of the only fights with that, the last 30% really matters. We need to get him down as fast as possible. But, and so it seemed like maybe Marksman would pull ahead there and just helping guilds get him down for the first time at least. But really, it just seems like the strong single target of survival and the completely free movement is too strong to pass up, even if it hurts you at the end.
Yes.
No kill shot.
I mean, I'm hoping eventually I'll be able to be in that ranged group, that clump that just gets to sit there and stand there in DPS. That'll be nice.
Yeah, I'm afraid especially if survival is pulling ahead, there's not much chance of us getting out of any mechanics now.
No, I mean, I get stuck with all the jobs right now.
That's a typical hunter thing. Yeah.
Yep. And that seems to be, one of those things that's sort of spreading a little bit too. People are just sort of getting that impression. Oh, great, we have hunters. Good, they can do. Yeah, I get the flamethrowers on Brack and Spore. I don't normally have to do the stands duty, but I do the in and out on the Butcher. And part of that too is it's not just because I'm a hunter. I mean, I think for our group, it's I'm able to do it and not have to communicate much, invent. I'm able to watch the other guy that I'm doing with it. I'm able to monitor my stacks, his stacks, and move in and out without having to waste time letting the group know I'm doing all this. So that's part of it too. But I guess
I do with both hunters, just because we can just look at each other and know when to move out.
Exactly.
Yeah, me too. I'm in the same role in the fight, but I found even the focusing shot, I could still plan out the movement for that.
Mm-hmm.
And just build up full focus, and then so when you have to run in here, you can just dump everything.
But the one thing I like about survival, more so than the other specs, it seems like they have more option in terms of talents. Like they're all things are close enough. I mean, Thrill of the Hunt seems to work, as well as Steady Focus are both good options. I mean, a Murder of Crows is good, but I suppose you can find opportunities for Stampede if need be. I considered taking Stampede on the Butcher, but I don't know if that's really good or not. Because I think you'd only get to use it one time, but I thought maybe towards the end of the fight when things are getting hectic, that maybe it's a way to get a little bit of burst in there, but I'm not sure. I haven't tried that yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you lose uptime when he's doing the bounding cleave every second, or however often he does it.
Yeah. And again, even at level 100, I mean, Lone Wolf and Focusing Shot both seem like options for survival. So, yeah, it's one thing I like about it is it seems like there's more opportunities to sort of pick and choose various talents and customize things to your liking.
I kind of liked that with survival right now, like, in working on the best talent tree, even if we're only talking about, 100 DPS or something fairly insignificant. It's interesting to see, so the switch, I have this build set up in SimC where I was using what I use in Raid, which is Focusing Shot and Steady Focus for single target, and trying to, tweak everything just a little bit to get the best out of it. And then I was like, well, I wonder if I can do that with Lone Wolf. And at first Lone Wolf goes down a ton, but then when I start matching other talents to have synergy with Lone Wolf, like Thrill of the Hunt gets a lot more damage out of a Lone Wolf because you have that 30% buff on arcane shots. So Thrill of the Hunt becomes more valuable again, and you kind of get to rearrange all your talents, which is, at least for someone like me, a lot of fun to trying to mix and match and see what works best with what talent. And I haven't played much Lone Wolf in Raid yet, but I think especially in Mythics with more movement-heavy fights, I'm excited about trying to make that work without losing any of the single-target DPS.
Yeah, and I mean, that was, I think, sort of the design goal with the talents was to be able to let you pick and choose and customize your spec and your rotation a little bit. And At least with survival, it seems like it's working out a little bit better than some of the others, which is good.
Yeah, I haven't played any BM, but is BM still all adaptation? I mean,
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't see any reason to take focusing shot really. I mean, it's pretty competitive actually. It's just I don't know why nerf your movement if you don't have to. You know.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that too. Especially, I mean, it's just you just take the talent and it's all it's just a passive damage boost that you said that's really, really good. So, and with the movement restrictions for a focusing shot, it doesn't make sense to pull in that active ability.
And plus, outside of raids, adaptation is just so great. Like, you can just tank anything. It's awesome.
Yeah. Although I was using survival, so I still have my barn, although I don't do too much with it other than hope and pray I get bloods every time. So I can sell those now on the auction house. But I was using survival to do my trapping, and I kind of like it for that. Other than the fact that I will aggro. I'll take aggro off my pet occasionally, but that sort of steady damage that you get out of survival is nice. I feel like I'm able to DPS them the mobs down a little bit quicker than maybe with BM, and maybe it's just my own wanting it to be that way. And but everyone is pretty much the same because there's not a lot of burst. It's more of that flat line of damage, and I just feel like everything's up for every mob that I want to try and trap, and I just feel like it's this nice sort of steady damage going out there. So I've kind of enjoyed it for that, other than just occasionally pulling aggro from the pet.
Yeah, I've actually gotten to the point with the trapping. So I was really excited when I realized we were finally doing just elites to get the Savage Bloods whenever I got my level 3 barn. And like, finally, okay, I'm not going to one-shot anything. This is great. But now it's getting to the point where I have to watch which dots are ticking. Because once I get close to 30%, it'll carry them all the way to 0 before I remember to put down my trap if I'm not careful. So I might be switching back to either Beast Mastery or Marksmanship soon to see if I can have less.
I think you can put the trap down at 40%.
50,
I mean, you can put it down anytime. You just have to run it through under 50. Is that right?
50.
Is it under 50?
Oh, 50's good. Okay. I'll remember that. I've been taking them down to like 40, almost 38%. And it's just, I don't know. It's tedious. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
The thing with adaptation is like for the elites, like I pull like 3 or 4 at a time and just AoE them down and trap them like one after the other. But also, I don't know if you guys are aware, but you can trap an elite twice, or any beast really.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I
don't know if it's intentional or not, or if that's in the realm of exploits, but I'm pretty sure everyone's doing it at this point. And it's kind of nice because it keeps, even if somebody else comes up and tries to ninja your trap, you can still at least get one out of it. But yeah, I'm not sure
you're using the trap within the cooldown. I don't know if it'd be like they might fix it, but I don't think it's an exploit.
Yeah,
but if you drop the 2 traps right on top of each other, then the beast will go over it, and you'll get 2 cages.
Yeah, I'll have to try it.
Especially at lower eye levels when those are taking a long time to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so now that my eye level's starting to go up, I'm well in the 650 range now. It's gotten a much easier, but it's still kind of tedious. And plus, I've been using it to get. I've been doing the river beasts to get the foods, but I've got like almost 200 of those feasts now. It's more. Everyone has them in raids, so I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, I've actually switched. At first, I was doing a lot of those feasts, thinking they would be valuable, but now that we have almost a full guild bank tab that's just beasts. I don't know what to do with those. So I don't know if this will apply to other people's servers, but I've been making decent money with fur.
Have you?
What it is? I mean, it's not a ton. It's something like 1,500 gold per stack. But since I don't use furs for anything except for making the goblin gliders, I think that's the only recipe I have that uses them. Maybe some leatherworking stuff, but it's minuscule amounts. So I focused on those wolves because there seem to be a lot more of them, and nobody ever bothers killing them over in Negrand.
Yeah, there could be some competition on the River Beast and the
Yes, I've
Cleftos.
noticed that. I've noticed that with both those before.
So yeah, check your markets if you're listening. It might be right now for me. They're selling a little better than leather is. So
Maybe I'll try that. But the bloods have seemed to be pretty good. I mean, I don't know what the drop rate's not the right word. I don't know what the percentages of the chances to get one, but it seems to be. It feels better than it was. I don't know if they up the rate that you'll get them out of those work orders or not, but I don't know. It feels pretty good right now.
I don't know if this is true, but someone told me that it's a 20% chance, and if you have a 100 follower, it's a 40% chance that they'll drop. It doesn't seem like I get them. I have a 100 follower in the barn, and I don't feel like I get it 40% of the time. But
Me neither. I've trapped I've done so many work orders, like at least 300 or 400, and it's nowhere near 40% for me.
yeah, I do get a lot. I mean, I've gone through at least 100 since getting a level 3 barn, and I was kind of late on getting the barn in the first place.
Yeah, I'm making good money with them. So I don't really need them anymore for myself, so.
Yeah, I haven't either. I mean, I suppose I could. I keep waiting to get. I still have a couple of leatherworking pieces, crafted pieces, that I suppose I could try and upgrade at this point, but I don't know. I keep feeling. I have the legs and the cloak, and I just figure at some point here I'll get a drop out of a raid somewhere.
It's so frustrating. I bought a 665 helm off the auction house, and that day got the 670 helm. So, or from raid. So it's been frustrating to try to gear up that way, either through crafting or purchasing.
Even some of the BOE stuff I've got, I haven't been able to sell it either. So I don't know how. And I got. So one of my Highmaul missions was successful, except I got gloves, which I'd already had, the heroic gloves, so they were no use. But they're BOE off Kargath, and I cannot get rid of them to save my life.
Huh? Interesting.
Yeah, I sold actually a few of those because I keep getting them, and it's so awesome that they're BOE.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just maybe I'm going too high, or maybe I have to check and see if there's the normal, the 670 versions on the AH that are going for less or something. I need to double check that. I think the other thing, I finally got an intellect offhand out of my salvage crates. It's like the one, finally after what feels like a million salvage crates, I finally got one epic out of it. And I can't get rid of that either.
Get any epics. I've been thinking it's time to tear down that salvage yard.
I can't give up the crates though. It's just so fun to open them.
It is fun to open them.
I feel like it's this bitter disappointment every time I open it and see, a stone or whatever.
It's that anticipation, especially sometimes I'll get as many as, I'll set my followers on their missions overnight, and then I'll come back in the morning and I'll get anywhere from 5 to 7 crates. I'm like, oh, this is great. I still need them for the follower gear though. I still get follower gear out of it. So, I'm not done with that yet.
Yeah, I've been stockpiling that.
I've been saving up the follower gear upgrades, trying to get. And maybe this is a good time to transition. We were having the show notes.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
So I've been trying to match up followers for each of the Highmaul missions, and I just don't have the right abilities to bother upgrading anyone's ammo or armor.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, I mean, Bendak, you wrote an article about this for WoW Insider. You talked about the Highmaul follower missions and what people can do to kind of get their followers and try, geared up and in the right order and kind of increase the chance of success for that. So I thought maybe we could talk about that a little bit. I know it's not hunter specific, but hey, we all like getting gear for our hunters, and that's those don't come up very often. And when they do, you want to try and make sure that you can complete them with as much confidence as possible. So I thought we could talk about that. So there's four Highmaul missions currently available, it looks like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Basically, they all need 6 abilities to be countered. So you obviously need 3 epic followers who can counter all this. But the chances of you having all of those specific followers is pretty low unless you've just done what I did and just brute forced it and just leveled up everything in sight. And I got pretty lucky where I can I can 100% counter all the missions except for one of them. I don't know about you guys, but
I'm at a point where, 2 of the 4, I'm definitely at 100%, and then the other 2, I'm countering 5 out of the 6. It looks like, and then there's one where I'm 4 out of the 6, and I don't know what the percentage to complete that would be, but that's the one I'm hoping doesn't come up, right? Because that's the one that probably will fail.
Yeah, I've got on Plains and Swamp, I've got 100%, and those were 2 I didn't even try. Those when I, got eye level high enough to have the 645, so I got that mission. I just happened to have epics ready for both of those. And on Ogre and Gron, I've got like maybe 4 out of 6 on both of those. So they're looking pretty rough. I'm not sure how I'll complete any of them.
Yeah, 4 to 6. I forget what the base chance is, but I think it's about 60% if you counter 4 to 6. But you can raise it then by there's those other traits like high stamina and stuff like that, or the racial traits where it's increased chance if you're fighting with a dwarf.
Right, and those sort of get and it's funny because I look at those sometimes. I see those like, I sometimes feel like I'm disappointed to see those, but I think they're probably better than one might think. Do you know what? Does anyone know what the percentage is that it will increase the chance by of success for one of those traits? Or
I believe it's 5% for those traits.
Okay,
but I think the high stamina might be more than that. It might be like 10%. I'm not sure offhand.
And those stack if I understand them correctly. In other words, if you have 2 people, I don't know if you have a dwarf and 2 people that increase the chance with dwarves, I think those traits will stack.
I'm not sure if they do actually.
No? I don't
believe
know.
Those traits stack, but the like swamp or plant, like where it's the area you're fighting in, I'm not sure that those stack. I think you get the 1 check mark and then you're done. So it depends on which trait it is, whether they stack or not. At least that's been what I've noticed.
Like if you have like 2 guys with a swamp trait, I think you only get 1 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I know like the things like the epic mounts will stack, I believe.
We were talking about that before the show, and that's just amazing.
And the resource gathering, resource guys will stack too.
What's that? Is that scavenger?
The scavenger, yeah, that's a nice trait.
Yeah, so now I think the 630, I don't know if it's 615 or 630 mission with garrison resources gives a base of 175. And if you can get 2 scavengers on there, you're set for life.
Yeah, I had one like that. I mean, I ended up getting like 500 resources out of it. That felt pretty good. So how does the item level affect the chance of success too? I know these Highmaul missions you want to have a minimum of 645 with your followers, but their item level, I believe, goes up to 655. So, I mean, if you have 3 guys with 655, do you know what percentage chance that will increase success?
Again, I don't know the exact. I think it's in the realm of 5%.
5%.
It does help. It does increase the chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I was just curious about that.
Yeah, that's what I've been sort of focusing on a little bit this week, is trying to get those, looking at, which followers best fit for those missions, and then trying to get their item level now up to as close to 655 as I can. So I think all the ones that matter there, I think, are at 654 now. So I figured that should help.
So is the plan, I don't know if either of you have heard, with when BlackRock Foundry comes out, our follower eye level cap will go up? Or have they announced anything with that?
They haven't announced anything, but I assume it will. So I just been stockpiling those items because I don't see why it wouldn't. Because I'm hoping anyway that there'll be BlackRock missions. But
well, fine. I guess I'll keep my salvage.
Yeah, I've been trying. Yeah, I would keep the salvage yard if you don't have a dwarven bunker. Obviously, that's the other place you can go to get your epic items.
I wish of them.
Yeah, I do.
Or your companion items. Yeah, I have both those. I have the inn as well. I still use that to try and get recruit a follower every week. And so what I'll try and do is look at those. And I don't know if you guys probably know this, but Master Planner add-on they keep enhancing it, and they added this missions of interest tab which will show you like the Highmaul missions and the resource missions and a few other types, the ones for the stones that you need for the legendary quest. And it'll show you what your best combinations are, what you'll counter and not counter, and can really help you do some planning. I've used it to help now plan and figure out where my gaps are, my needs are, and I've been using that to try and, boost my followers and increase the chance for success for this mission. So that I find that to be very handy. That was a very nice addition to that add-on.
Yeah, I agree. That add-on's amazing. Like, if you do a lot of missions, it'll like change your life.
Yeah, which I do, and that's mostly what I've been doing. In fact, I was using the stables for a bit, and I tore that down, and I put the barracks back up just so I could get the 25 followers, to get those 5 additional followers, which I find has been good. So I can do more missions. I can just mostly so I can level up more people and increase the chance of getting the right combinations of folks that I need.
Yeah, and you get the higher XP missions too, so it doesn't. With those missions, it doesn't take very long to level up like brand new followers either from the end.
No. To get them from 90 to 100 doesn't take too long. It's just getting them to be the rare and then the epic level, which takes the most amount of time.
So how many epics are you guys at right now? Do you have any rares left? You're still trying to get up to epic status?
I've got 24 epics active, and then one guy I just haven't bothered with, but and they're all like above 645 too.
Wow, that's
yeah. I don't have that many that are. I don't know how many epics I have. I have a few rares, and mainly these are the guys that, of course, recruit from the inn are the ones that I still need to level up. And I don't know why I waited so long to do this, but I finally went out and got Bluke as a follower.
That's my favorite follower.
Yeah, he's very cool. He's got that one trait. I forget the name of it, but it increases the chance of success for missions just overall, which is very nice.
Combat experience.
Yeah, the combat experience. That's a great trait.
It's unique to Blue. It's unique to him, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
It's the same. It gives you the same benefit as high stamina or burst of power.
Right.
It's the same chance.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I'm missing is that burst of power. So I think maybe this week with the inn, I'll probably recruit someone that has that ability. I have 2 people with high stamina, but I also have a bunch of people that have the epic mount trait, which I think will counter, of course, will kind of negate the high stamina trait. So I focused a little bit on high stamina because it increases the chance of success on missions that are greater than 7 hours. But of course, if you pair that up with an epic mount, that'll decrease the length of the mission. So it'll, those two don't work well together.
Right. So what's the one called that is less than 7 hours? Burst of power?
Burst of power. Yep.
Yeah. So you're really unlucky if you get something with burst of power. High stamina and epic mount.
Yeah. Those two don't work well together. Oh yeah. I didn't think about that. Yeah. If you get one follower that's got both those traits, that would be kind of ugly.
So I just last night got my first quest that had the reroll token on it.
Yeah.
Do you guys know anything about that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the best strategy for using that is. I used it. I had one on a different tune, and I used it on a common. So someone that was green that had a trait that I knew I didn't wanted, and so I used it on that tune, thinking that because I think it'll randomly re-roll all the traits, right? On a follower, if you use it, it won't just.
Is it just traits? I thought it had abilities
everything.
Also.
Does it do?
Too.
All right, say that again.
It does abilities and traits.
Okay.
Yeah. So at this point, I only have 20 active followers because I don't have the barracks or whatever. But I do have lots of 630 to 645 epic followers who do not the exact same but they're completely redundant. I don't have any use for that high level with that particular thing. So I've been thinking maybe I should just reroll an epic and hope I get one I need for the Highmaul. No, I don't know what the chances of that actually happening or if I'm going to end up with just the same stats again.
I think you just have to be careful with it because, if that follower has something that you don't want to lose, you'll risk losing it. And, there's no guarantee that you'll come out ahead when you re-roll.
Yeah. So
I mean, I used it on for example, I just used it on a follower. Like I said, it was a common quality, but it had jewel, which I had no use for. So I figured, what the heck, I re-rolled that one just to get rid of the jewel crafting and get something else. But that again, that one just had the one trait, so it was low risk. I knew, I pretty much knew I was going to get rid of what I didn't need, and there was the chance of me getting something that I might need later. Whereas if you use it on an epic follower, I don't know.
Well, I'd probably use it on something that, like I used mine on a follower that had, it was an epic follower, and both of his abilities countered danger zones, so it was kind of useless. Okay. So I used it on that follower, and I got 2 new ones, which was nice.
Yeah, that's great. Where did they end up being helpful, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing to do, if you don't have anything like that, just look at which ones you're have too many of. Like for me, it's always danger zones. I have too many danger zones. So I would just use the token on whatever one you're, overflowing with.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, you definitely want to pay attention to it though, and use it on something that you don't mind losing.
So in somewhat related news, I'm not actually sure when this went into game, but they made the changes to outposts where you can switch it for only 5,000 gold now.
Mm-hmm.
And so originally when I went through on my first hunter, I did Gorgrand. Is that how you say that? Gorgrand?
Yeah.
I did Gorgrand through the Rexar zones, not realizing I was missing out on 2 hunter followers. So I've now switched it over so I could get both of my hunter followers. And I have to say they're doing really good. I think I have 4 or 5 now hunters. And I think that's really what makes a difference in any Highmaul combination. Even if it doesn't give you a higher percent.
Increase the success chance.
The spirit that helps.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. I was just going to say the Nagrand outpost, it only costs 500 gold to switch.
Oh, it does? Okay, I've got one too, and I might do that because I had one where I took not the Talbot, but the siege tank. I don't like it.
Yeah, that Talbot's just too awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it was only 500. That's kind of amazing. Maybe I'll try the other quests just to see what they're like and then switch back to the Talbot.
Well, it's funny, for most of the tunes now that I run through Gorgrond, I will take not the lumber, but the sparring arena. I just like the Rexar quests and those quests better than I do the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for Horde, it's the same choice. You can either get a hunter follower or you can quest with Rexar. Find that disappointing that they didn't match those up.
Mm-hmm. And just one more thing about that. So the Highmaul missions, and then you get those, once every 2 weeks? Is that right? That's
pretty much right on the dot. As soon as 2 weeks later, you get it. For me, it was like right down to the hour.
And those don't have the same timer, the same expiration timer as the other quests, right?
Yeah, I have no idea how long the timer is. I just know it's at least 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, I think I probably waited about 3 days while I was trying to upgrade it. It makes sense. I mean, you should have all week to get it done. As generally, you have all week to get a regular raid done, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think they would want to do that, too, just because it wouldn't make sense to have it only be there for like half an hour or force you to have to take it right then and there, because that would not be ideal.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing worth mentioning about these missions is the quality goes up the more bosses you kill in the actual raid.
So, that was a good point.
If you kill 15 bosses on normal, then your missions will start giving you heroic gear. If you kill 15 heroic bosses, then you get mythic gear.
I didn't actually know what the number was. That's good to know.
Yeah, I think that's good to know too, because I just was under the impression that you had to actually clear normal Highmaul before you could get those missions and vice versa. But
No, I think technically you could go in one day, kill Kargath 15 times, and unlock it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So, and that works with Mythic also? You could kill heroic
Well,
Kargath
it works
15 times?
it works at least with the normal to heroic thing, so I assume it does for that as well. It just goes, you know, if you go to your armory, and it shows you your total boss kills for the raid. It just goes off that, I think.
Yeah, we've only been doing, I guess, the bosses that people particularly need at this point on either, you know, normal or heroic. So I wonder, that might be good for guilds who are gearing people up or trying, you know, maybe had some turnover and want a new player for Blackrock Foundry. That'll be helpful to just run through that a few times.
Yeah, and I'm looking at my armory now, so I'm at 14 for normal, so I got to get one more in there before the next mission pops up.
Just go to a pug and just kill Kargath.
Yeah. Too bad we don't have our fancy mythic progressors here. I'm curious if they've had problems with that, since they probably only did heroic the first couple weeks. You could have 2 full clears and then never do it again, and maybe you don't get any mythic gear.
Yeah, true. Though I'm sure they're aware.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, you would think though, once you cleared normal, for example, that would count too. But maybe, I guess it doesn't. I would think they would want you to do that. Or once you killed a mythic boss, you could trigger that. But although, that is interesting. Although some of our folks, depending on how fast they clear mythic, you know, it may not matter as much. The Highmaul missions are just sort of extra for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, it still matters for me. I want that mythic gear.
Well, I think our group's a ways away from that. We're just sort of focusing on clearing normal right now, and then we'll focus on heroic.
Yeah, so speaking of mythic gear, I have a cautionary tale for anyone who's interested. There was kind of some controversy about the black market auction house, and that there's some Blackrock Foundry gear, gear that's better than any other gear in the game that you can only get off the black market auction house. And so I decided I'll go check it out. And, so I've been there a few times, every once in a while, just seeing what's on there, how much it costs. And I saw a $6.95 mythic Blackrock Foundry ring, agility ring. And I thought, sweet. Oh my goodness, it's only 37,000 gold. That's, which for the black market auction house, that's really low. And I was like, oh, maybe it was just put on there. I'll go ahead and bid on it just in case I get it. And a few hours later, it arrives in my inbox, my in-game mail. And I got so excited. Sweet, I got a $6.95 ring for so cheap. And I put it on, and it is a bonus armor ring.
Oh
which
my
I guess
God.
does absolutely no good for hunters. So I just basically lost out on an entire stat.
Oh, you just saw the agility and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, I just saw agility and thought, sweet, I better click bid on that.
Oh man. That's, yeah.
Read your tooltips.
Jeez.
Bummer. Oh well.
Anyway, it's still, I hadn't had much luck with rings, so I had my legendary ring and a I think 636 heroic Warforged dungeon ring. So it's still slightly better than that dungeon ring, but not as good as even probably a normal or heroic ring will be from Highmaul.
I wonder if the bonus armor transfers to your pet.
Yeah, I don't think it does anything. I'm afraid. Maybe I haven't tried a tenacity
I'm just joking,
pet.
yeah.
Maybe.
Well,
That's
let's
funny.
see. Well, do you want to talk about explosive trap for a little bit? This sort of, we wrote about this earlier in the week, and it was something I took note of. And it kind of dovetails back to the survival discussion we were having earlier about the idea of whether or not it's worth it to use explosive trap in the single target rotation or not. And I think there's been some discussion in the hunter community about whether or not that's worth doing. That seems to always come up every expansion, whether or not it's worth tossing an explosive trap when you're doing single target DPS.
Yeah, so it looks like as it's working right now, explosive trap is doing almost as much damage as an arcane shot with the serpent sting.
Mm-hmm.
And for no focus cost, it's coming out DPS ahead. For the vast majority of hunters, it's about 1%, maybe a little less than 1% DPS. I mean, we're talking about maybe 500 DPS at the most that you can get out of it. Probably only 200 or 300 DPS increase. So I don't know how worthwhile it is for, most hunters. But if you're really trying, to get the top parse, or you're really trying to push your DPS as hard as you can, I think it provides that opportunity to make your rotation extra complicated for a little bit more DPS, which is fun sometimes. I don't think it's mandatory. Like, you won't be bad if you don't do it, but it's there and you can try it. I've been working on it on most bosses. I think there's at least some opportunity to get DPS out of it.
Yeah, I haven't tried mixing it in yet. I don't know if I will, because you kind of have to be, I think, really on the spot with something like that too, especially if you're, chances are you're going to be doing it via the trap launcher, which takes a little bit of time to pull up that targeting reticle and position it where you need it to be and fire it. So, that's not instant. So you are, potentially losing out on a little bit of some GCDs possibly in the amount of, depending on how proficient you are at executing your trap launch.
Yeah. So for, I guess, hunters who haven't been, working with traps a lot, maybe started huntering in MOP, there's a few tricks you can kind of do to get rid of that uptime. I don't know if many people remember, I guess it was Wrath when we were using Serenite bombs.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people would macro that to their Cobra or Steady Shot. Maybe it was just Steady Shot then. I don't remember. But so the trick is you want to do it on a cast shot, and you can use the cast time to aim, and then actually it'll, aim, and towards the end of the cast, click it, and it will fire immediately once the cast is over. So, you can hit focusing shot, and while that's casting, hit your whatever your keybind is for explosive trap, and have, 2 seconds to aim it, uninterrupted, which is, you have to stand still anyways, so might as well aim an explosive trap.
Well, that's a good idea. I thought about that. See, and that makes sense.
I haven't tried. Maybe one of y'all know, or somebody in the chat room might know. I don't think you can macro them. Like the Serenite bomb, you could just macro to your steady shot and always drop it when you were doing a steady shot. If it was on cooldown, it just wouldn't show up. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can do that with explosive trap. You've got to hit the 2 keybinds since they're both on the GCD. But it still, works out a little. You have a lot more time to aim it if you pair it with your Cobra shot or steady shot or focusing shot.
Yeah, and someone in the chat room right now is just asking, does anyone know if for survival, it's just asking if they need to do this. And so by the sound of it, I guess potentially you could get a little bit more damage out of it. It's not necessarily, you should consider this to be mandatory, right? If you're
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone's going to get kicked because they didn't use explosive trap on cooldown. So, mandatory, we're not talking about a huge DPS increase, but it is a DPS increase. So, maybe mandatory for yourself if you're just trying to get the most out of your DPS. But I can't imagine any raid leader's going to look at your explosive shot or explosive trap usage. And there are still a lot of things that are a lot more important to your rotation, like using lock and load as quick as possible and things like that.
Sure. But sometimes, all people sometimes hear is like, oh yeah, explosive trap in single. That's all they'll hear, and they, without all the detail, the porting, logic behind why you should do it. And then next thing you know, it becomes like, you know, if you're not doing it, then you're just doing it wrong, which isn't necessarily the case, you know? And I feel like with something like that, unless you do it perfectly, you know, actually, you know, either get the benefit of the DPS or even perhaps hurt you're missing some GCDs, you know, but like,
yeah. So if it's costing you, you know, extra GCDs, then it's definitely a DPS loss. And that is something you can change the settings if you're simming yourself in Simulation Craft. You can change the settings and add some more human error in there and see if you're still
that's good to know.
DPS ahead. But for the most part, you know, if you're taking even like 0.3 seconds, 0.3 of a second, that's too much time to aim it. And you want to, at that point, only use it if you've got focusing shot up, I think.
Right. But I mean, are there some fights though where you just want to use it, like trying to think like Tectis, for example? Is that one where you probably want to toss it in anyway if the things are close enough together?
Yeah, you know, once you have the 4 or 5, I'd say definitely. Mm-hmm. The Tectis is so hectic for I think most people. It's kind of the end, just nobody knows what they're doing. So I rarely have enough time to think, you know, I'm just thinking about not being in the bad at that point. And so I'm not really paying attention to how many targets I'm getting up. I haven't been delaying Explosive Trap at all in Tectis. I just get it up on whatever I can see. And if it's a lot of targets, great. If not, hopefully I'm not standing in the bad.
Right. Yeah, I did that for the first time. I completed a normal last week. Enjoyed it. It was I can't imagine what it's like. I may not enjoy it as much, but at least on normal it wasn't too bad.
The Hurric's not considerably different. I think just as far as I remember, it's all the same mechanics as normal. They just hit a little harder. So it's more punishing if you don't pay attention to where you're standing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds good. So there you go. So Explosive has does have the potential to be more DPS, but you know, kind of use it at your own risk, I guess, or just, you know, make sure you're not hurting your DPS by taking the time to launch it. Sure, you've got trap launcher on too, because chances are you're going to be in range to need to launch the trap. And
chances are it's been toggled off because you switched to talent.
Exactly.
Oh goodness, that still is in game.
Yep, it is. Like I said, I think Bendak, you said before, you can set up a weak aura to kind of alert you if you don't have it activated. Do that because there are times it's not even just like a pull. I mean, trash pulls too, where I want to toss in a trap and there it is.
Yeah.
It's at my
sitting
feet.
at my feet.
Yep.
Yeah, fortunately with survival, 12-second traps. Man, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So even if I do mess it up, at least I notice and can turn it on and put a new one in 12 seconds instead of 30.
All right. Well, we're getting towards the end here. We have one listener Q&A, one tweet from earlier this week. A pretty straightforward question. This was from Shri Dog on Twitter, and his question was, he says, in Partisan Warcraft logs, BM is not looking granted low sample size. The kill shot nerf hurt. So I haven't looked at, the logs. Is BM parsing low, or are you not seeing that?
This might be an older question. I'm not sure because there's a tweet here from Celestalon.
Yeah, that was a tweet from, I put that in there. His tweet was not from early December. This was
okay.
Since the last show, I would say. I don't know the exact date, but it was since we did the last show. I remembered Celestalon had weighed in on that and had said no, that the kill shot change was trivial and was going to have a less than 1% impact on Beastman. Thought that changes that people might actually be playing BM. So that was sort of like the developer response to kill shot in general, but it wasn't a response to this particular tweet.
Yeah, and I actually looked at the top, the very best BM parse at the time when the nerf happened to kill shot, and it was something like a 0.73% decrease to having a 10% less damaging kill shot did about 0.73% less DPS overall. So it is an impact on BM, but that wasn't, BM's problem. BM has a lot of other issues with single target DPS right now. I don't know, Bendak, you said you've been playing it some. Do you have an opinion on the matter?
It's single target it's fine. And I mean, I think survival is still higher for single target, and the problem with BM right now is the RNG for getting frenzy stacks. If you have good RNG, I mean, your DPS could be higher than you would get with survival. But if it's lower, like really bad RNG, then, it's just part of the spec now, I guess.
Yeah, so I think I saw somebody made a comment at one point that it's a lot like survival was in Siege of Orgrimmar, where we had our 4-piece bonus that resets the explosive shots lock and load proc. And, so sometimes you would get 5,000 in a row, and sometimes you would never see it reset at all, and, go multiple black arrows without getting a single proc. And it looks like that's how Beast Mastery is working out right now. There's just not a ton you can do if you have bad RNG.
But either way, the buff it was pretty significant for me. Like I'm fine with playing. I can play BM on any fight. It's been, just toying with survival. And I still prefer BM for some fights, like Tectis. Or even Korag, actually.
Oh, how's that working out on Korag?
Well,
Can you get enough out of the AoE, out of the ads that pop up in transition?
Well, it's just because they wanted to assign just a few of us to do the ads, and BM's AoE burst is so good. It was just really helpful.
Well, that's cool. I might be interested in trying that. I've been looking for a good excuse to pick up BM a little bit.
And sometimes I get thrown into the stands too, and in that case, I take BM for sure.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I just think the specs overall are in a good place right now. Like, you can play anything. Like, none of them are bad.
Yeah, so I guess in direct response to the tweet, BM is, or at least from what I've seen, is a little bit behind. I think, it's close to 5% behind in single target DPS, but the reason the logs there's so much disparity in the logs is just people hear, oh, this spec's the lowest, so they don't play it. And the only people who play it are, kind of the diehard fans, not necessarily the cutting edge people who are trying to get the most DPS out of the spec. So I don't know if you can really trust the logs in that. Looking at the difference between classes is really helpful in logs because you have the people who are playing the best spec competing with each other. But it's not necessarily helpful in looking at the difference between specs because of that disparity.
But it's interesting in that, the changes that they made didn't seem that extreme, right? I mean, there were just some slight tweaks to the hunters, and yet it made such a huge difference, had this big impact where, as you said, we now kind of have parity between the specs. You can play whatever it is that you like and be fine with it. And, it just felt like it took a long, and just like prior to that, we were in such a different place. I mean, there was one and only one that with marksmanship that really, really stood out. And now we're in a good place.
So Bendak, before you had, I think, been getting a lot of emails or comments on your blog that people had been getting kicked because they played BM. Is that still happening? Are you still hearing about that?
I haven't heard anything about it, no. So, I mean, I don't know if the general population knows that BM is better now, or if just the attitude's better, or just less people are doing heroics. So
I'm wondering. I haven't run heroics. I haven't run a 5-man in at least a couple of weeks. I rarely run them now. I mean, I don't need the gear out of them. And we don't have comms anymore. There's no badges. So, the 50 garrison resources you get a day isn't even that significant, or however many it is that you get. So I have a tendency not to run 5-mans. I haven't done them in a while. I mean,
as soon as I was done my inquests, I stopped doing them.
That's my only incentive to why I should do them, is because I haven't finished all my inquests. So that's the main driver for me. So I haven't been doing the 5-man heroics. Same with the Pexis dailies. I don't do those every day now either.
Yeah, I need to do some for the mounts, but the Pexis gear is just not worthwhile to me.
No, it's not. It's a lot to
You need so many crystals, and it's only equivalent to normal gear once you fully upgrade it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But I do like, those, I think I just recently got exalted with a couple of the factions there in Draenor. And so there's a couple mounts I could buy with, I think you need like 5,000 Apexis crystals or 4,000 Apexis crystals, which is very reasonable. That's a few days of doing dailies. And that, so I got to do that grind at some point.
Yeah, I think there's a follower you can get out of there too for crystals.
There's still a lot of, I think there's several factions that I haven't done exalted with. I guess there's so much backlash against the reputations in MOP, especially early MOP, that they just didn't bother making them important at all now. So I'm not sure what the point of getting exalted is other than the mount, but I'll still do it eventually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I like I said, I think between what was I going to say? Yeah, between everyone doing raids, LFR gear, item level going up, I imagine that heroics have gotten a little bit easier now as people probably are better geared. They know the fights a little bit more now than in the beginning. That I'm guessing that they're probably smoother to run than they were before. That people probably don't care as much about what spec you have.
Yeah, and I noticed too, just general like running into other hunters in Highmaul raids, because usually there's quite a few hunters in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd say like the spec distribution it's almost like perfectly even from what I've seen. Like there's still people playing marksmanship.
Yep.
There's people playing survival and BM. So it's nice to see, because before this it was just everyone was marksmanship lone wolf.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's it's more like this week there were 3 of us in the raid. 2 of us were running survival. I tried marksman on a couple, and then we had someone else that was running was running beast mastery most of the whole time, and everyone was doing fine. I mean, it wasn't the DPS that was killing us on these fights. It was other things.
Yeah, in PvP they're pretty even right now. All 3 specs. Well, I think the top 5 hunters on the 3 versus 3 ladder, we've got 2 beast mastery, 2 survival, and 1 marksman. So it's pretty cool to see it that even.
Yep. So.
I think the marksman was Dilly Poo, who's a friend of the show here.
All right. Well, on that, I think we are over our time a bit. We're out of listener Q&A, so I think why don't we call it a show here, and then we'll come back in a couple of weeks and do it again, hopefully with a full house at that point, maybe a guest or 2. I think we're due for a guest here. So on that note, you have been listening to episode 208 of the Hunting Party Podcast. I'm Darkbrew from thebrewhall.com and the Brew Hall on Twitter.
I'm Delirium from thrillofthewild.com and @DeliriumHunts on Twitter.
I'm Bendak from Eyes of the Beast, WoW Insider, and Bendak WoW on Twitter.
Check us out on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or at our RSS feed to your reader, and we'll have all these links available on our show notes.
If you have a question or a topic you would like to see us discuss on the show, email us at huntingpartypodcast@gmail.com or send us a tweet at huntingpartypod.
Yeah, and be sure to follow us on Hunting Party Pod if you're not. And stay thirsty, my friends, and remember to drink your dark brew lager.
Always heed the thrill of the wild.
Keep your eyes on the beast.
For the horde.
Life stealer, that's just the cost of being an awesome sauce. A dues payer, a boss slayer, I rock out with my lockout now. I'm a hunter, I'm a hunter, I'm a hunter, I'm a hunter. Viper to cheetah to dragon hawk, no time to worried about my threat, 'cause I've got FD and misdirect. Catching loose mobs in my traps. I never miss, 'cause I am hit capped. 'Cause I'm the hunter, not the marked. I'm the fighter, not the spark. I'm the kiter, not the kite. I'll top the meters every fight. Rated in the cave, dealing death. Just me, my gun, and my trusty bed. Now let's begin with Illidan, Osirian, and Gil'jadan, Magdamar, Asgalor, Gruul, Cthulhu, and Razorgore, Onyxia to Ragnaros. Which one have we killed the most? Kel'Thuzad to Malagos. We even killed a Kama's ghost. Feels like we're getting close, all that running as a ghost. Anubarak, Yogg-Saron, Thorian, Sartharian, Nycthurodon, Sapuron, Lucifer to Sulfuron.